Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just got back from a week in the region, and the common consensus of 4 different heads of state and several military people in the region is that things have gotten materially worse, not better, since the JCPOA in terms of domestic security for these 4 countries that we visited. But I'm a little confused today, particularly with comments that are coming out this week. And I'd like to get you on the record, Ambassador, about the UN violations or not violations. But in December, Ambassador Mull in this committee stated that ballistic missile launches would directly be a violation of UN Security Council Resolution 2231. Well, we've seen those missile firings before and after implementation day, and yet this week American diplomats submitted a joint EU-US report that says that the launches, and I quote, are inconsistent with UNSCR 2231, but not a violation. For the record, do you think that the ballistic missile launches were indeed a violation of UN Resolution 2231?
Thank you very much, Senator. From our point of view, UN Security Council Resolution 2231 prohibits Iran from launching ballistic missiles. The language in 2231 is different from 1929, as you know. 1929 says Iran shall not undertake any activity related to ballistic missiles capable of delivering nuclear weapons. 2231 calls upon Iran not to undertake any activity related to ballistic missiles designed to be capable of delivering nuclear weapons. In nuclear parlance, in international parlance, there is a distinction here, but for me it's a distinction without a difference. From my point of view, 2231 is telling Iran that it should not be undertaking any activity related to ballistic missiles, and that's how we act. In other words, we responded to the ballistic missile launches with designations, and we will continue to respond.
So we responded as if it were a violation?
We did.
Okay. So you think it is a violation?
Violation is let me put it this way. I believe it violated the intent of 2231. Whether our international lawyers will say it violated 2231, this is why we use the word inconsistent. But from our point of view, these launches are prohibited, and we are going to do everything we can to stop them.
So on the sanctions that we put in, and I agreed with the administration to do that, and I also agree with our ranking member that it would have more teeth if it were congressionally sanctioned. But in terms of those January sanctions, 11 entities and individuals were named. But it was interesting that transportation companies that were involved in the procurement and delivery of this technology were not included. The financial partners were not included. Members up and down the supply chain weren't included in that. So it seems to me that if we really wanted to stop the ballistic missile activity, we'd put sanctions on the full supply chain from A to B. Can you speak to that, about the omissions of those major players in that supply chain?
Since 2010, when UN Security Council Resolution 1929 was approved by the UN Security Council, I believe we have designated over 27 entities and people that look not only at those providing equipment, but also those who are facilitating the provision of equipment. I would be happy to talk with you about specific individuals or entities that interest you and respond to that question. But I believe we have been focusing not just on providers of technology, but those who facilitate that technology or the provision of that technology.
Thank you. I'm also concerned about the liquid assets that are now available through the JCPOA for Iran and what they're going to be doing about that. The administration, when they were supporting JCPOA before its enactment, were adamant about ensuring that Iran would not continue to subsidize Hezbollah and Bashar al-Assad. Can you give us an update on what the administration is doing to assure the people of the region that that indeed is being implemented?
Let me answer this in 2 tranches. First, in regard to the monies made available to Iran through the JCPOA, we assess that Iran has access to about $50 billion scattered throughout any number of banks.
That's pretty much cash. That's liquid today, correct?
If they can get it.
And then there are other assets, as I understand it, that are liquidatable. Is that correct, in addition to the 50?
That I'm not as sure of. What I have been told is that there was $100 billion being held in overseas accounts.
Right.
but that about 50 billion of that was already called for, either through financial commitments that Iran has made, through contracts, or because of other aspects of the financial instruments that are being used. But that the money available to Iran is about 50 billion. But again, it's scattered throughout an international financial system and held at different banks, and therefore it has to be accessed piecemeal and over time. And this is something that we've been watching closely. And this is what the Secretary Kerry was referring to when he said that there are times when we have to clarify our guidelines in regard to sanctions so that Iran does have access to monies that we have committed to make available to it. In regard to whether or not Iran continues to fund terrorism-related activities or destabilizing activities in the region, there's no doubt that that's true, and we are seeing it. Whether it's in Syria, whether it's in Lebanon and Hezbollah, whether it is in Yemen with what they're doing with the Houthi rebels. And we continue to do what we can through authorities that we have, both sanctioned authorities given to us through IEPA and through other legislation and through executive actions to sanction when possible and to counteract the activities of Iran in the region.
Okay, thank you. Real quick, given the increased activity that Iran is showing in the region since the JCPOA, can you give us an update on the memorandum of understanding with Israel relative to the military assistance there? I know it doesn't expire until 18, I believe. And also, given that Iran continues to make anti-Israel statements, even putting death to Israel stenciling on the missile that they've been testing, I think this is really important that we reassert that support for Israel in light of this increased activity. Can you give us an update on that MOU?
We are in the process of negotiating the MOU with the government of Israel, looking at how best we can continue to meet the defense needs of Israel as it faces the threats posed in the region, some of the most significant being from Iran. Since the beginning of this administration, over $20 billion has been provided to Israel in defense spending, including nearly $3 billion to help finance the Iron Dome anti-missile system.
Over what period of time would that be?
The
20?
Over this administration, 8 years.
So 8 years.
Yeah, and I can get you the kind of the latest state of play of our negotiation with the MOU, but it's a constant theme of our engagement with Israel.
But our intent is to continue to have the military edge, the qualitative military edge that we've had in the past.
Correct.
In the region. Okay, thank you. Thank you.